Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Access Entertainment and Metalholic magazine. With us today from Miss May, Ryan Neff. How you doing, brother?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. You guys are out on the, you guys are calling it Frozen Flames tour, August Burns Red. How's it going so far?
Yeah, it's been good. It's a long tour. It feels like we're about 5 weeks in. It's only been about 2.5, 3 weeks, and it feels like we got about 5 weeks to go. I think we got 2.5, 3 to go. It's been a long one. We went through all of those pleasant storms in the upper northeast right at the beginning.
Right.
Barely avoided the Boston one. We got hit in New York City, Clifton Park. Then 5 days in Michigan, we hit a couple, or Canada, we hit a couple. Then got hit with another one in Michigan. But luckily, when we got out here in like Denver and Salt Lake, that whole long drive area, we were worried that it would be pretty bad. But got through the weather today's nice. It's been nice. Can't complain.
I was gonna say, it's one of the things I don't think, fans think about you guys being out on tour all the time, the rigors of the road and everything, but I don't think the fact that the weather can play such
I think the weathering has been more tiring on this tour than the actual tour has been. The tour is smooth. You got 5 professional bands and nice professional venues every night. So the actual show day part is pretty easy. It's the after the show when you're tired trying to get from point A to point B to get to the next show that's exhausting.
Well, August Burns Red has always been one of those bands that was sort of an influence on you. What's it been like sharing the road with them?
It's cool. I actually was talking to Jake earlier in the tour. The first time I saw the band was 2007 at a venue called Little Brothers in Columbus, where I live, and it's a club that's not even there anymore. It's a smaller kind of bar place, and it was funny. That was Jake's. What he said was probably his first tour with the band, and I had been following him for a few years before that. So I've been a fan for him for probably 10 years, somewhere around there. So it's a cool tour to be a part of because we've been fans of them for so long. We had toured with them one time. I believe the tour came here. It was a 2011 Vans Warped Tour they were on it. And there were so many bands that just wasn't one that we linked up with on the tour, didn't really get to know them. And then this tour in a venue with only 5 acts, it's a lot easier to get to know each other. So it's been cool. They're cool dudes. We get along pretty well.
5 acts almost seems like a mini festival in and of itself, but a nice segue because the last time I talked with you guys, I sat down with Levi at Mayhem Festival when you guys were here last July.
Completely different.
And I was just talking with him about that and everything, and because that's like summer camp for rockers.
Oh man, that's by far the coolest one that we've ever done. It's the same exact mentality that you have going into the Vans Warped Tour, where it's a big outdoor event and large crowd festival atmosphere, except you know when you're going to play every day. There's no waking up, not sure what slot you're going to play, and there's only 15, 16 bands, so everything is just streamlined. Catering lines are short, and you can get to know somebody from every band. So it was a good one here. It was a really good one here. I remember that one. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the one thing that it seems to come through here every year, and we're very thankful for it because you wouldn't expect it in a place like Boise, but
it was packed.
Yeah,
that was one of those ones where, because we had done the Warped Tour one here, and I don't think the Warped Tour one we did as well. I think it was kind of one of the more slow days. And then we did Warped Tour again, and I don't believe that came here. So when we came back with Mayhem, it was the same exact venue. So in my mind, I'm like, man, I hope this goes well. And it was huge, massive, great show.
So
there was a Dust Bowl. Circle pits were causing crazy Dust Bowls that day.
Now, you guys have had basically a year now to tour on Rise of the Lion, the new album. Does the record feel different to you now that you've had time to sort of live and breathe with it, or as they say, kick the tires?
Yeah. It's been such an odd cycle because we took a breather on this one. We had hit the road so hard for 3 albums in a row that we basically kicked this record off with a giant all-in-a-row chunk of touring, and just wore ourselves out after that run in the summer, and pretty much took most of the fall off. So this is still only we did the kickoff tour where we did small venues, but that was only in a small area on the East Coast. Right. We did the Mayhem Festival run, and then this is pretty much the first tour that we've done on the record in America. So it's like to us, it's such old news because we wrote the record and recorded the record we were writing the record 2 years ago. We were recording it over almost 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years in the fall, I believe. So to us, it's old news, but it's such a new record to be touring on because we haven't played it in front of a lot of the fans. So it's weird. It's kind of neat. It also is a record that appeals to a different piece of our fan base than the other ones because the other ones were released in like the Vans Warped Tour fashion when we were doing that tour, and a lot of tours with the bands that we would be with on that tour. And this one was like Mayhem Festival, and then the giant European festivals, and then like the big stuff like Knotfest and that sort of thing. So no, it was a completely different group of people who fell in love with that record than the ones who fell in love with the earlier records. So when we play with ABR, who we played with before, it's almost like playing for a lot of our old fans compared to the Rise of the Lion fans.
Right. Well, and this was a much more diverse record. It was you guys evolving and everything. Plus, it's funny when an album comes out, you ask people what's your perspective of the album you just did. It's really hard to have a good perspective because it's so fresh.
The perspective is always, it's the best one.
Exactly. That's why I say it's been a year now. How do you feel about it now in hindsight that you've actually had a chance to live with it?
It's cool. It's a cool record to me. I think it was a challenging record to make for us. It came at a time where a lot of stuff was going on personally behind the scenes that was slowing people down. That you're going through a lot of crazy behind the scenes stuff. So when we got in and we did the record, we basically did whatever we wanted. And when you do exactly what you want on a record, it's going to come out a lot differently. So it was a hard record for me. It was a really hard record to make. It was challenging to do it from like a different perspective, like we did the fans, topics, and that sort of thing. The release of the record was complicated. I mean, everything about it. We were touring so much, so fast, and I think looking back at it now, it's a great record and it's really cool. But I think everybody is already excited to be looking ahead at the next one.
Which I'm going to ask you about.
I'm sure.
But before we jump away, one of the things that I know is there's a lot more vocal stuff going on. I know you and Levi spent some time with Melissa Cross, the Queen of Scream, and BJ and they're the other guys in the band.
The vocal harmonies now live.
Exactly.
Well, the thing that we wanted to, one of the big things was we didn't want to put anything on the record that would require a backing track. Was just one thing in our mind. Like we wanted it to be as easy to recreate in like an in-studio environment or an on-stage environment as it could possibly be. We basically wanted a very old school take recording-wise on our band. We wrote the same kind of songs, minus Echoes, which was a little bit left field. The rest of the record was still a very fast-paced, very similar record to what we always write, with the breakdowns alternating with the screaming, yada yada. But we chose to go to Terry and record it a completely different way. And we left out a lot of the crazy vocal harmonization that we would have done on previous records and that sort of thing. So now the songs off Rise of the Lion live are even cooler, and that's one thing I wish we could go back now, because with BJ and Justin being so great at and learning how to do all the live harmonizing and stuff now, and Levi and I going to Melissa and learning how to harmonize screams with singing parts and vice versa now. Now there's all these new things that we know how to do that we've thrown in the set live, that we look back at those songs and we're like, damn, if we had just stuck that on that song, imagine how much cooler it would have been.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. It's like, now have you gone back and sort of punched up the older tracks and everything?
Yeah. And I guess that's if you're constantly learning, you're always going to come up with new things like that. You're always going to look back at. That's the problem with asking any guy in a band like what their best record is. It's always going to be the newest one, because as the person writing the record, you probably learned something new in between. So to you used more new skills, and that's obviously the best one, where you ask a fan and it's a whole different group of rules on why it is their favorite record.
Well, and big Pantera fan, you mentioned it, you worked with Terry Date on this.
One of the main reasons and White Zombie does too, which a lot of our fans would up in arms, no idea any of the records.
Right. What did you take away? Because I asked Levi this. What did you take away from working with Terry?
We learned to be confident in what we do because Terry didn't work with us in the same way a lot of other producers do. He does more of he's a producer by taking whatever you give him and making it sound the best it can using his ear, not by helping you rewrite a part, not by writing a part for you, by taking the band that you are and what you want your band to sound like and making that sound the best that it can be. So it was much less of every time I would do something in the studio, what do you think of this? Should I do this? Should I do that? The answer most of the time was, try them both and you decide. You're the artist. You let me know which one you think is cooler. I'll give you an opinion if you really want it, but it taught me to be self-sufficient in the studio and not be afraid to try things, to do different things, which even people who don't like the record have to acknowledge. We were not scared about doing different things on that record, that's for sure. If it popped into our head and we thought it was a good idea, we were rolling with it.
Well, and as you alluded to before, you guys are far enough along in the cycle now that it's time to start looking ahead to the next album. You guys had some evolution on this one. Where do you see the band evolving for the next record?
We had a good time when we wrote the last record, when we found the ability to record in pieces. So we wrote all the songs live in a studio together in a live environment, minus the vocals. So all four of us in a room together, writing, and that's how we've always wrote our songs, is in a live environment. This time we had a good buddy who has a studio close to home, so we went to his studio and did all of it, and we got to record the whole record live once, almost like a performance.
Right.
And that was our pre-pro for the actual tracks to begin writing the vocals. But then once we got to Seattle with Terry, we set up vocal booths, personal vocal booths for Levi and we got to just basically sit in a glass room together and write songs, scrap them and write and scrap and go over and over and over until we found what we wanted for that particular track. And we sort of wanted to be able to do that sort of thing for the whole record this time. So the band invested on making sure that everyone had the proper equipment to record at home and the proper knowledge and ability to start tracking demos at home, so that now we can write a little bit more stress-free and not have to take a whole extra month of our year in a studio.
Right.
We'll be able to do a lot of our pre-pro all throughout the year, rather than booking up a 3-week chunk here and a 3-week chunk there. But it gives us a little bit more freedom and a little bit. I think it'll take a lot of stress off this time, because when we do it that way, rather than having 10 songs to work with and we roll in, or I think 14 instrumentals last time, we might roll in with 25 tracks to start picking through. And at that point, if you're going to scrap a part or scrap a song, you might not even have to lose a whole song. You can just pick and choose great pieces of songs and turn them into better songs. So I think we're going to be better prepared when we decide to go in next. But we are definitely thinking about it. We're definitely working on it, getting it ready.
Is there anything you want to try in the next record that you haven't done yet?
I did Screaming on the re-release tracks of the second record, and those are pretty cool. I've never really done them live or on a record, but you never know. That might be fun. But there's a lot of stuff vocally that I've learned how to do in the last couple of years through great singers we've toured with that. I guess I just haven't had the balls to try. Going on tour with some of those acts we did last year really show you how to branch out, though. I mean, if you tour with the same exact style bands all the time, you're going to get the same exact inspiration. Right. Just like if you listen to the exact same songs, we're going to write the exact same record over and over, which, depending on what fan you talk to, is the right thing to do. But as we go on tour and tour with a lot of different acts, there's just so much new stuff that I guess not that you want to imitate, but you see some actor that you love doing something on tour and you're like, man, that's so badass. I want to know how to do that, and you find your way to incorporate that skill into what you're doing.
Right. Well, and you've done Mayhem now, which was a very diverse group of bands. Plus, you did the Five Finger Death Punch thing. So there's a whole lot of diversity going on there.
You can't go on tour with
things you pick up.
Yeah, you can't go on tour with bands as awesome as like Avenged and Korn and Five Finger. and not learn something.
Right.
You are not paying attention if you didn't learn anything.
All right, so before we get out of here, just for fun, a couple of questions. We mentioned Terry Date before. I had asked Levi this. If you guys were ever to cover a Pantera song, because I know you're all Pantera fans, what song do you think you guys would cover?
I would like to play Primal Concrete Sledge. That would be my choice. That would be cool.
Nice.
I don't know what song would work the best for our band, but we got a lot of Pantera fans in the band, so it would be a debate. That's for sure. It would take us a minute to decide, but I think that would be the most fun for me. That's one of my favorite songs, so it'd be cool to play. I would have nothing to do in it either. No singing for me. That's all falls on Levi. So cranking the ears, I'm knocking it out.
So what's the hot topic of conversation in the band right now while you're out on tour? There's always little things going on as you're on the road. Something comes up. What's sort of the buzz going on?
This tour is full of sayings. Like, sayings are coming up left and right. People are, weed is tight is the new saying that's going around. Everybody's just yelling, weed is tight. Doesn't even matter if this guy smokes weed. That's just everywhere right now. We got a lot of cool Australian dudes on this tour with North Lane. And I have like a nightly, I try to have like a nightly session where I sit and learn Australian slang with them. That's pretty fun. Because they're from an area of Australia where we've never met anyone from either, so they have their own separate lingo from other people that we've met from Australia. So I don't know if there's really a hot topic right now. There's no one it's not one of those tours where there's much to gossip about. Everybody's pretty well behaved and pretty cool, so there's not really much to gossip about. NASCAR, we're gossiping about NASCAR because it started yesterday. So that's what we did yesterday, and where was it? In Spokane at the Knitting Factory. There was a VIP room for VIP guests, and we sort of just took over the big screen and the surround sound during the show so we could finish watching that race.
All right, so just to learn a little bit more about you before we get out of here, last question. Give us 3 albums that changed your life.
Astro Creep 2000 by White Zombie. It's a record that Terry Date did our last record. I obviously liked Rob Zombie when I was younger. He was exploding when I was middle school. That was when Hellbilly Deluxe was out. But I had a cousin who's older than me who was in high school, middle school when White Zombie was out, Pantera, Nirvana, that sort of thing. So she had the massive CD collection, and the 3 I remember from that are the Astro Creep 2000 record by White Zombie. I was an absolutely massive fan of Dirt by Alice in Chains. And, oh man, 3 albums. The 9 Inch Nails, I'll just say Downward Spiral, but I got like 4 out of 9 Inch Nails that I can name. Yeah, I think those would be 3 of the bigger ones. They were big for me musically, for falling in love with new types of music, as well as bands that I love to learn how to play my instrument to. So they were all equally important in both worlds. My love for music and my drive to learn how to play and be in a band.
Nice. Ryan Neff, Miss May I, Pacific Northwest this weekend. Spokane last night, Boise tonight. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Absolutely.